As a business owner and leader, I know that you've had moments where you felt that the world is more complex and more intertwined than ever. There are so many moving parts to consider when running a business, not only within your company, but also in the environment and in the market, in the world. You're constantly wondering, how do I make the right decisions, considering all of this intricacy? For example, when you make this decision, then those people are impacted. If you take this path, then you have to make that sacrifice. If you choose this stance, then you're alienating these segments of the market. And the time between taking a course of action and feeling the changes and experiencing the ripple effects of those actions, that time is getting much, much quicker, especially as technology and the pace of today's world is evolving at an escalating speed. Now, this means that sometimes the consequences of your decisions are predicted or predictable, but more and more, as the world grows in complexity, businesses and leaders are experiencing surprises in the form of unforeseen ripple or domino effects and unintended consequences. In this video, we'll unpack what is causing this intertwining effect in the world, and what it means to be growing a business in our increasingly complex world, and how to navigate the intricate challenges that this change imposes on you as a leader. Intertwining is one of the 4 global trends that I unpack in my white paper titled Redefining Business Significance in a Wise World. WISE is an acronym for the 4 trends, namely widening, intertwining, which is what we're speaking about today, surprising, and escalating. These trends are causing constant change in the world, and it's our job as leaders to navigate and lead through these trends, these characteristics of our world, which threaten the success of your teams and the growth of your business. So let's unpack what we mean when we talk about the intertwining nature of the world. Everything and everyone is intertwined and constantly becoming more intertwined through complex interdependence and interconnectedness. Josh Hopperman, who's the vice president and principal analyst of the technology and market research firm called Forrester Research, describes business complexity as a condition of having several interdependent and interconnected stakeholders, information, technology systems, and organizational structures. Stakeholders include employees, customers, partners, suppliers, regulators, investors, media, and competitors. And organizational structures include divisions, subsidiaries, and joint ventures. And so all these stakeholders, systems, and structures have internal and external connections that we might overlook in our attempts to strategize and lead effectively. This is why we're seeing more cases of domino effect and unintended consequences. Now, the term unintended consequence was popularized in the 20th century by American sociologist Robert Merton, who used this term to describe the situation when we do something purposefully and then we experience outcomes that were not intended and were unforeseen. In other words, unintended consequences blindside us. We often don't realize what's happened except in hindsight, only after the damage is done. So for context, a few years ago, I was commissioned by an organization called YPO, which is a global organization whose members are C-level execs of companies that turn over a minimum of $10 million per year or more. Many of them are much bigger than that. And they commissioned me to develop a masterclass on how to establish influence with other influential people. In other words, how you as a leader can lead other strong leaders. Now, when working with leaders at this level, the focus is on optimizing one's inner game of influence. That is, to expand our capacity, how we use our mind, how we manage our own thoughts, assumptions, emotions, beliefs. When we're able to do this, we're able to remove the inner barriers that typically sabotage our ability to lead others or navigate high-stakes situations in the most elegant, intuitive way and the most effective way. And so this masterclass was such a hit, even winning an award for the chapter that hosted it, that I started offering a version of it to my corporate clients. Now, because I could only be in one country or one stage at a time, I started missing certain opportunities to work with organizations because of clashing dates. Also, there were companies and leaders who couldn't necessarily afford to hire me to work with them in person, And so I decided to create an online program of the masterclass to help solve these challenges and to provide an extra solution for clients. As I started creating this program, COVID first sent the world into lockdown at home. You know, we were in crisis and literally everyone had a strain on their mental health. So instead of launching my initial idea, which was a program specifically for leaders of companies, I recognized that the material could help everyone in the world regain control of their thoughts and emotions during this high stress pandemic. And so the launch of this program to everyone was a huge success. You know, between the free and paid versions of the program, we helped tens of thousands of people over 4 continents, ranging from students to retirees, from people who just started their jobs to senior managers. And even full-time parents who weren't working at all. It was also hugely profitable, and we were putting most of that profit back into the online advertising spend so that we could get it even more reach. By now you're wondering, okay Gilan, this all sounds good. Where's the unintended consequence that blindsided you? Well, things were going so well that I scaled up the team that I had working on this program, as well as our budgets, like I mentioned, like our ad spend. And within a short period of time, I'd spent over $1 million on online marketing, and our ongoing daily spend was also just set really, really high. Then, almost as quickly as it had exploded and grown, suddenly the whole thing imploded. I started losing money every single month, and I spent months and many more resources trying to get it to at least break even. I had to eventually let a few people go, and it was a really difficult time. Eventually, I just had to move on. Why did this happen? Well, there were a couple of factors at play which created the unintended consequences that bombed my thriving venture. Let me share with you now just one of those factors which illustrates how intertwined our world is today and the complexities that it forces us to face as leaders. Well, it had to do with the online spending patterns and how much or little it cost me to acquire new students into my online program. See, when COVID lockdown prevented so many companies from operating normally or being able to deliver their products and services, one of the first things that came to a halt was their spending on marketing and advertising. Now, when you run ads on social media, there's an algorithm that calculates supply and demand. So if there are lots of companies targeting their ads to a certain type of person or demographic, then demand for that audience goes up, and so does the cost of showing your ads to that audience. They call it the bidding system. And since so many companies during COVID lockdown halted their advertising campaigns, the cost of showing ads was super low. Now, this meant that we got a far lower cost per lead and therefore a far lower or extremely low cost per acquisition. Thing is, we obviously weren't the only people to experience this. So when we realized how enormous our return on investment was because of such a low cost per acquisition, it meant that we weren't the only ones starting to massively scale our campaign budget. After about 11 months of scaling, hiring new people and so on, that bidding system took a turn almost overnight. The cost per lead went sky high. Not only that, but other companies started advertising again, and so there was competition to deal with, which eventually made our cost per acquisition so totally unaffordable. Now, if you've read my white paper on the 4 wise trends in the world, that is widening, intertwining, surprising, and escalating, then you know that one of the characteristics of the trends of our world widening is that companies across industries have more competitors coming in from around the globe. Now, this meant that as the COVID waves would peak and drop, it would also create waves in the online bidding system too. And so we'd make changes in, say, our ad copy and our sales messaging, and perhaps we'd see an improvement in uptake and acquisition costs. But was it because of the new sales copy, or was it because of the state of the COVID wave in who knows which other handful of countries that were influencing the bidding system here at home, you know? And so here we were in this complex, hyper-connected, and therefore hypersensitive online marketing landscape, which was causing unpredictable fluctuations, untimely competition, and these surprising domino effects. Now, here's the thing. The description I've just shared paints a picture of the world today. You know, if you're a leader in an active business, you too have felt the effects of the intertwined complexity that businesses are facing today. Now, not all unintended consequences are negative, by the way. Some may be serendipitous, but you know, whether seen as positive or not, the intertwining nature of the world means that these domino effects and unintended consequences are occurring more and more often and more unpredictably. Take, for example, the Great Resignation. You know, this was catalyzed by the pandemic, lots of people resigning. And whether you know by that name or one of its other names like the Great Attrition, which is a McKinsey's term, or the Great Awakening, which comes from Salesforce, or the Great Re-Evaluation from Thrive Global, it's a clear demonstration of how intricately connected everything and everyone is. It's like everything impacts everything else. It's like the butterfly effect on steroids. And furthermore, the three other trends, that is widening, surprising, and escalating, they accelerate the intertwining nature of the world. And then in turn, as we become ever more intertwined, it catalyzes even more widening, surprising, and escalating natures of the world that we live in. And so I think that a suitable name for all of this is the Great Intertwining. I couldn't resist. But anyways, as a business owner or a leader in business, what can you do about this today? How do we grow our businesses and ourselves amid all this change? The short answer is stop asking the relevance question and start asking the significance question. The relevance question asks, is what I'm making or selling still relevant, and will it be 5 or 10 years from now? The significance question asks, is who and what we are important to the world? And in the future, will we still have qualities worthy of attention? See, when you hold significance with your people, your employees, your customers, and any other stakeholders, then they will ride the wave of change with you. If you focus on remaining significant, then the way you serve your customers will by definition always be relevant. But there are many stories of companies trying to have the most relevant product who fail when the world changes. And they just simply cease to matter because they never developed significance. So the short answer is establish significance. The longer answer, explaining how to establish that significance, is found in my white paper titled Redefining Business Significance in a Wise World, as well as the many YouTube videos I published like this one, which is related to the white paper. So if you haven't read the paper or watched all of these videos, links to those will be on this page. What are the next steps that you can and should take right now? Well, you can start by sharing this video with your colleagues so that you can have a discussion around it. And of course, visit my other resources that I mentioned, which will help you as a business owner and a leader to gain and retain significance. On this page, I'll also include information on how you can contact me if you want me to personally work with you and your team to navigate and lead through these 4 wise trends. So that's something that'll be available for you if you want to look into. And you can also look out for my next video, which will be a deep dive in one of the other 4 wise trends, namely the trend of surprising. And this is an important trend and characteristic of the world to understand if you want to know how to deal with the imminent threat of disruption. Because when it comes to disruption and your business, no matter the industry or size of your company, it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when. So make sure to watch that next video when it comes out next week. If you found this one helpful, then don't leave before subscribing so I can continue to serve you. And I invite you to find me on your favorite social media platform and connect with me there in the comment section of any of the daily material that I post. I'd love to have a conversation and to meet you there. Thank you for your interest in significance. From me, Gilan, your coach and friend, I'll see you soon.